Tracy, I just started the live broadcasting, so just want to let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
There's nothing for you to do, just letting you know.
Roger looks like he's ready to spin some records.
DJ Raj.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes,
I thought Notre Dame was going to give that up last night.
I know. They
I-
tried to. They tried
I-
to.
Yeah. I told my partner, I think we might have to get out of here early. Before I knew it, they was making threes all over the place.
Yeah. They don't. Sometimes they don't play as a team.
That's the problem.
And basketball is a team sport, not one person who can shoot from the half court line.
Well, it's an inverted one-man team.
Yeah. Yep.
I thought maybe his wrist was sore last night.
Well, he wasn't a high scorer last game. That's why.
That's right.
His 30 shots, only 8 went in. Oh well, that's high school sports.
There you go.
They're not like Joel Shear. Joel can jump, dunk, shoot jump shots. No matter, it doesn't matter what it is. Joel can do it all.
And call his own fouls.
Joel's the one-man team.
He takes his own charges
I don't
too.
know about that.
You got that.
Hey, I haven't been on the Bensonhurst Globetrotters for a couple of years now, but the Washington Nationals are trying to recruit me.
Oh, boy.
They need another water boy?
Yeah.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started. I see that there's 9 members of the public with us also. I believe everyone is on. Am I missing anyone? Peter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Rita, are you there?
Buzz.
I see you, Rita, but I don't see you, but I see you're on.
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll stand for the invocation, followed by, well, just remain seated for the invocation. We'll stand for the pledge of the flag. Heavenly Father, we ask for your blessing and help us as we are gathered together here tonight for the needs of our residents. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Help us work together and encourage each other to excellence. We also thank you for individuals like Alfred Dean Jones, who was highlighted in this morning's morning call, who excelled in so many ways in serving our schools, our community, whether it be young or old. He is a role model to many. Also, please keep a watchful eye for those who suffer from the pandemic facing our world. Give them the strength to overcome COVID and live long and healthy lives. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the
Republic for which it stands,
One nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
for all. Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Ettinger? Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
here.
Mrs. Volcano?
Here.
Mayor Panto?
Here. Approval of the agenda, please.
Move.
Second.
Moved by
Second.
Douglas,
Second.
second by O'Connell. Any additions or deletions or changes? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Action on our minutes of our meeting of February 10th, 2021.
Move to approve.
Moved by Brown, seconded by Volcano. Any additions or deletions or changes? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
This time in the meeting, we have the opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items only. At the end of the meeting, there will be a time for you to bring up any comments, concerns, or questions about the city of Easton. Anybody raising their hand? I don't see anyone. If you'd like to use the button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand during public comment periods, please do so. We'll move on in the agenda reports. There's no reports of the consent agenda, rather, please.
Okay, under the consent agenda, we have 3 certificates of appropriateness. One for 155 Northampton Street, 512 Northampton Street, and 45 Larry Holmes Drive. And we also have a resolution that would appoint Mr. O'Connell as the representative to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
I move the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Moved by Ruggles, seconded by O'Connell. Any comments, concerns? Roll call.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger, Mr. Ettinger,
He's muted.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
and Mayor Panto.
Aye. There's no reports received by council. We'll go right into reports of the committees. Finance Committee, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zanacki.
Hey, Mark, you're up.
Mr. Brown, good evening, members of council. Yesterday afternoon, I sent council a snapshot of December year-to-date results for 2020.
You have to get closer or talk louder.
Okay, let's try that again. Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Good evening, members of council. Yesterday afternoon, I sent council a snapshot of our year-to-date December numbers for 2020, and I included some highlights based on where we are at this time. Obviously, several revenue line items in the general fund, including EIT, BPT, real estate transfer taxes, and the like, are looking good compared to council's revised 2020 budget. However, there are offsets, including lower real estate taxes and casino revenues than what we had originally anticipated. Combined, they are pointing to revenues exceeding expenses at this time. With that said, there are a number of things to consider. These include the following. A variety of accounting entries still need to be booked, which may frankly push the numbers up or down. These will include surely inter-fund adjustments where monies owed between funds will be trued up. They're typically called our due to or due from adjustments. Next, I would ask that we keep in mind that a portion of the potential savings created by the city's debt restructuring late last year was accounted for in the revised 2020 budget, and it is being used to safeguard against the continued impacts of the pandemic on our city, its residents, and its businesses in 2021 and beyond. In addition, our budgets for the last several years relied on liquid fuel funds to fund reconstruction projects. Due to the drop in gas consumption across the state, as more people stay home and may for the foreseeable future, we anticipate those funds from liquid fuels coming in lighter than in past years. And the general fund will need to be in a position to reabsorb these projects over the coming years. This leads me to my final point, where I would ask council to also take into account the fund balance policies that we've adopted over the years for the general fund, healthcare, and insurance, property, and casualty funds. The adherence, or at least the push to adhere to these policies, has played a pivotal role in the city maintaining its credit rating. On a separate note, just a short while ago, I sent out preliminary January numbers, 2021 numbers. My team and I have been focused on closing out 2020, but we will provide additional clarity on January numbers at our next meeting. With that said, are there any questions on either the year-end preliminary numbers or what has been sent out, just like I said moments ago, for January? Dr. Ruggles?
Dr. Ruggles.
Yes, I noticed in the preliminary values that you sent out, specifically in real estate tax, what is the percentage? What is the amount? What's the difference between what we budget and what actually came in? You know that?
Yeah, for real estate taxes, let's see here. We budgeted 8.8 million and are looking at about an $8.3 million number so far, which shows a gap of about, a bit over $500,000, 535,000, or 95% to budget. I will say that the last several months of the year, comparing to 2019, that real estate payments just were not coming in at the pace we had seen in the past. I know there was some debate when we revised the 2020 budget about where those numbers would land, and it looks like folks were just not paying the real estate, their real estate bills.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned in your memo that you related this to COVID, I'm just wondering, is there some way that we as a city can reach out to that $500,000 of real estate tax and do something to help those individuals, kind of get through? I mean, I don't want, liens being placed on people who lost their job or whatever. And I'm just wondering, is there something that we as a city can do to, kind of not excuse that, but, postpone it to, whatever it is, but, communicate to them that, we understand their situation.
Well, I would look to city council for guidance on how we approach that.
Mark, we can get back to council and look at that delinquent report, if you will. And this is something that we can put together, Roger, and just understand what the delinquency looks like versus any payment plans that also have been put together, potentially through Portnoy. So why don't we get that back to you at the next meeting? And that'll provide for a better discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Louis, I would also like to drill down on that $535,000 to see how much is owner occupied and how much is landlords. I know a lot of landlords aren't being paid rent because evictions aren't possible. So I'm wondering if they're holding back on their taxes. So I would like to know that number as well if we can find out.
We'll get the information and we'll present whatever we get back to council.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Mark. We've got a long way to go on year end, but it's getting there. Fortunately, the refinancing made this look a lot better than it would have looked because we've had expenses over revenues way high. So we're very fortunate of that.
Mayor, the one thing I do want to say is just to remind council that 2019, we saw expenses exceed revenue in the fire department OT. It was a significant jump. And to Mark's point on the fund balances, both healthcare and property insurance casualty have taken a significant hit. So there's a lot of different moving parts. And when I mean significant hit, we have about a $3 million goal for healthcare and about a $1 million goal for our insurance and casualty fund. Both are in the low six figures in terms of funding, and in insurance casualty, it's been as high as 1 million. In healthcare, it's always fluctuated between the low six figures to about $1 million. So they're moving targets, and we've been trying to manage through them. But certainly they're at multi-year lows. So again, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of assumptions that we took into this year's budget as well, 2021. So we'll be circling back with the mayor and with council, obviously.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, anything else on your committee, Vice Mayor Brown?
Not at all, Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark.
Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Volcano.
I have no report this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Planning and Code Committee, Councilmember O'Connell.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Dr. Ruggles, Public Safety Committee.
I have no report tonight.
Public Works Committee, Councilmember Ettinger.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have a bill on under new business now changes to the street sweeping and parking restrictions, and Mr. Hopkins is here to explain it to us.
Thanks, Mr. Edinger. So on the agenda, the department is recommending some changes to the city street sweeping program. There's two primary reasons for this. The first is that we figured out that we would be able, with no changes to the actual route, but changes to some of the times of postings and dates of postings, we can go from 2 machines to a single machine, and from 2 operators to a single operator, and 2 PEOs to a single PEO, and get the same job done, just run both routes in a single day. The second reason for this is for a long time, we've had some difficulty communicating with the public when we have to cancel a route mid-route because of inclement weather, equipment malfunction. It's very difficult when you're running 2 sweepers, say one on, and sometimes they overlap. They could be both in the West Ward or on the South Side. And it's difficult to say, hey, we're canceling Route 1, and then explain to everyone all the addresses and streets that are included on that route. It's virtually impossible. So what we end up having is, people maybe getting frustrated over having moved their cars. We don't sweep, and situations like that. So what we're proposing now by having a single sweeper doing a route on any single day, if there's a reason to cancel the route, it applies to everyone equally, and messaging becomes that much clearer. And I think if we decide in advance that, inclement weather is called for the following day, we can actually cancel sweeping the day before so that no one has to move their cars for no reason. So I think it's actually a win-win for us and a win-win for the public. The only downside, obviously, we did our best, because this does affect every day. So we did our best to try and ascertain, where we might inconvenience someone. And I think, like we've done in the past when we've made adjustments to the program, we're going to have to adjust if there's something that doesn't work. But overall, we've run it physically. We can be where we need to be when we say we're going to be there. It'll require some adjustments to some signage, but only either vinyl decals or a new face. Signs and poles will remain in place. Like I said, all the routes will remain the same. Most people will just be affected by a change in time or a change in date. So there's no expansion or reduction in the actual program. But we think it'll be beneficial for everyone in the end once the changes go into effect. And we would anticipate that if with council's blessing, that we'd like to start this April 1st. And because because it is a change for most people, we would recommend a period of warnings versus enforcement, just to get everyone used to the new routine. And that's pretty much it.
Any questions for Mr. Hopkins? Okay. Moving on. Administration Committee, Councilmember Milan.
I have no report, Mayor.
Report of the City Solicitor, Mr. Shear.
Yes, I have no report this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shear. Report of the Mayor, I'd just like to mention a couple of things. Just for your edification, to show you what a storm of a snowy February does to the city. On Monday, we got 398 phone calls in one day. And in the month of February, we got between was it 4,000 or 6,000 calls, Louis? 4,000, yeah. We got 4,000 calls in the month of February. So you can see that, and 52% of them were answered and 48% went to voicemail or rerouted. You may have been told about the Lafayette College alarm that went off, and I've only had a few phone calls, not as many as I thought I would, because you remember when we had the terrorist impact on a bomb that was going to go off, was planted in one of the buildings in the college. We got chastised for not letting people know, and now we're getting chastised for letting people know. The alarm that the college has is primarily for their students to shelter in place. The incident took place in one of their college's houses on the 400 block of McCartney Street. And when the alarm went off and told people to shelter in place, average neighbors are asleep at 4:30 in the morning, but college students may not be. And because of the snow and the stillness of the winter air, a lot of the surrounding neighborhood heard the alarm, but they couldn't hear what the impact was. So our police department is working with their police department, not only on catching this individual who was dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. So we don't think we think he was one from the neighbors. The young girl who was attacked, he knew by name, and she's now no longer cooperating. So the good news is she's a college student. If she wants to continue to be a college student, I guess she's better cooperate with the city and the Lafayette College Police. But we're trying to work with the college so that the neighbors have a website to go to find out what caused the alarm to go off. And we're working with them on protocols like we've done with our own protocols, changing, a 3:30 a.m., letting people know that it's going to be stormy and thunderstorms and winds. We've changed that. The National Weather Service is no longer part of our alert system. We want to work with the college to probably fine tune that a little bit more. Year-end financials we went over. Federal government, you've probably been reading about the legislation that's been proposed by the Biden administration of $1.9 trillion. Thankfully, as President Biden did tell us at the National League of Cities and at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in January, he is supporting direct aid to cities and states. The bad news is most of the money continues to come through the states before it gets to the counties and the cities. And as you know, the states have not been willing to share it or even spend it. They've been hoarding the money. We've been fortunate. We got quite a bit of money from the CARES Act, the federal government, to pay for COVID-related expenses. But we're looking forward to this tranche of money, which will not have the restrictions on it. It'll actually help us replace revenue. And obviously that could be a game changer for us, especially as far as, as I said in my October 1st budget message, one of our first priorities is to not have to furlough employees this year. And we're looking good on that. But if we got federal dollars, we'd look even better. So we're if you make a phone call or you see Senator Casey or Congressman Wild, please continue to thank them for their support. Senator Toomey, I've talked to, his concern is that the money that was originally proposed last year, still some states haven't given out. They still have it in their bank accounts. And he's concerned about that. He says, we don't need the money. We just got to put out the money that we have. So direct benefit or direct payment to the cities would be really good. And this isn't just cities. This is municipalities. So your townships and your boroughs and your towns in Easton and the Pennsylvania would get that. I'd like to give you an update on the 4th Street Garage because you'll probably see those contracts in 2 weeks. We are going through the bids right now, and Mr. Hopkins is on the line in case you do have a question about the bids. But the bids came in a little higher than expected. So we've been reviewing those bids, and we have some cuts that have to be made. As you know, one of the first things we're going to be recommending to City Council is that we not do the plaza as part of this project. That'll save about $250,000. The Historic District Commission had about $100,000 worth of upgrades that they wanted to see on the garage. So we're going through those bids right now, trying to get them down to what we can. Dave is also getting us the best bids We've been dealing with the contractor, with the engineer and the architects on the bidding process and doing our due diligence on the contractor to make sure we select the right contractor. But you'll probably see those contracts in 2 weeks. The lag time on the precast construction is between 10 and 12 months, which puts us out a year. So the project's been delayed 2 years. This is another, but this year is part of the construction process. So we'll be giving you more information on that in 2 weeks, as well as in 2 weeks. It's going to be a very busy meeting because we'll also be giving you the agreement of sale is just about done. We've negotiated and bargained with the Perron Group that the committee selected and ultimately was the preferred developer of City Council for the 185 South 3rd Street, the 3-acre lot there. We've come down to redlining the agreement of sale and agreement with everyone, both the administration and the council and the developer. So now it's time to bring it to you. We will bring you an executed agreement in 2 weeks. And if you concur with that, it'll be introduced that evening and voted on in the following 2 weeks, because it is an ordinance and we can answer any questions you may have at that time. The last item, for some reason, the downtown residential parking permit, when I worked on it, I was on my laptop and never got to city clerk's office or never got on the council. What I'd like to do is I'd like to recommend that the downtown residential parking permit for $100 a year be sunset, that the only people who can continue being involved in that program are the ones that already have it, that moved downtown when downtown wasn't the place to move and they were the pioneers. The problem we're having right now is that with all these new apartments coming online, it's great, but for $100 a year, they're taking up all the parking spaces. And the city did make a decision not to move the concrete barriers. We expect that outside dining will be part of the vibe in downtown in late March again, because restaurants, there's still people who don't want to go in restaurants to eat. They were put out and placed by private contractors. We did use some CARES Act for that, but we don't have any more CARES Act to do that. So I think Dave's on the line here. I think he told us it would be about $70,000 to move them. So we just left them in place. But that takes up a considerable number of parking spaces, plus the downtown resident program. And what's happening is a lot of people are, for like at the Governor Wolf building. The Governor Wolf building is not eligible for a downtown parking permit. But they come in and they tell the traffic division, oh, I live at 42 North 2nd Street, and they get a parking permit. But yet they have a parking lot that comes with their property. So we've exempted them in the past, but some of them are getting, because they can park right out front and walk up in the front door. So I would like to propose in 2 weeks the sunsetting of the downtown residential parking permit program for new permit holders. Ones that already have it, they can continue to renew it every year. I mean, it's not fair to them to just stop the, well, I mean, I guess we could, and maybe somebody will recommend that, but my recommendation to City Council would be that we sunset it so that the people, you no longer get new permits. And again, the reason is very simple. I mean, you have the Seville, the Benner property, the Commodore property, 185 South 3rd Street. We want these people to use our garages, not our parking spaces for our customers. So that's the end of my report. If there's any question, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mayor, what's considered a new permit?
Somebody who's just moved downtown for the first time. They don't live here.
I mean,
they don't
like
have,
within the last,
well, as effective date, the effective date of the ordinance would be 30 days after its after its formal passing.
right.
But just to let you know that all the developers that we've been in contact with are proceeding with their project. I just got the RCAP grant agreement contract that the city has to sign. I'm reviewing that right now for the Commodore project. So those people who aren't aware of the update of the Commodore project, they're looking to start that this spring. So that project is moving forward. Okay, well then let's move on, Madam Clerk. No correspondence, no unfinished business, right into new business.
Okay, we have bill number 5 that's going to be introduced by Mr. Ettinger, where we will be amending chapter 560, the vehicles and traffic, and it's for the parking restrictions for the street cleaning that Mr. Hopkins explained earlier.
So introduced.
At this time of the meeting, there's no other business. Is there any other business coming before city council members before I open it up to the public? Okay, at this time, for any member of the public who wishes to raise their hand, we'll
Mayor?
bring you. I'm sorry.
Mayor?
Sal, you have a question on the,
There was
Go ahead,
a resolution appointing me as, for the Lehigh
Yeah,
Valley
that was done
Planning
under the
Commission.
consent agenda. You're
Oh, I'm
already-
sorry. Okay.
You've been approved by us. Imagine that. We all approved it.
All right.
I know you did a great job for us 2 years ago, so this will be good.
Lucky you,
Thank you.
Dave. Lucky you.
Sal,
Yes, Dr. Ruggles.
you have, there's a question on the Q&A typed in. I don't know if you want to address that now.
Oh, can we buy parking permits for alleyways since there's not much parking in these areas? The parking permits that we sell for $100 a year are for metered spots only. I don't know what this one means from Edward. Can we buy parking?
He had that question up prior to your discussion of the parking permits. So I assume that he's concerned that parking on the streets, like probably now in the West Ward and other places, is very critical, and was wondering about the alleys as far as parking is concerned. That's my assumption.
And then he just said yes.
Oh, okay.
So you're right. And I know that you and I talked again yesterday morning about your proposal to register all cars in the city. And Dave, one of the things I want you to look at is what Allentown does as far as street sweeping stays 12 months out of the year, so that when there is snow, parking is on one side and we can get through there and plow it while there's no cars there and push it back to almost to the curb. Lewis and I were out today, and a lot of the snow banks have melted, but there's still a lot of snow out there. We have cars that are parking perpendicular rather than parallel. So we'll do that.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
mean,
Dave.
I know you and I had talked about that, Mayor, about possibly having an ordinance where cars in the city that are parked on city streets need to have a permit, and you know, have it permitted, so that we have at least some control of how many cars are on the streets. I mean, I've talked to a lot of residents who said, yeah, see that house over there, it's a rental, and there are 14 people living in there, and each one of them has a car. And you know, that shouldn't be. I mean, and the only way I think that we could control that is if we had cars registered.
Okay. David, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that it would be kind of complicated. We only sweep about 30% of the city. So, you know, you'd be able to move cars along those routes. You know, I'd be concerned that in the winter you may have trouble finding parking for that many cars if you're moving them. The other thing is, often what people don't understand is that, you know, that isn't always plowable. Sometimes it is, but you know, we get calls for, you know, please come down and plow my alley, when it's virtually impossible to move frozen or accumulated wet snow with a truck in an alley because there's nowhere to push it. So all of that has to be removed. It's probably worth an analysis just to see where it could help, but it would be probably applied inconsistently throughout the neighborhoods based on where we sweep currently.
I see. That's true. Good point. The only thing I will say is, when it comes to plowing, Sal and Pam Panto are not treated any differently. I know that there's been a whole bunch of chatter on social media that the city came in and plowed our street curb to curb. That is not true. The biggest pile of snow is in front of my house because our neighbors go out and we plow and snow blow ourselves curb to curb for parking spaces, and they throw all their snow in front of my house because I have a driveway. So the snow is there. So somebody came over to my neighborhood. I consider harassment and stalking. They came over to my neighborhood on that night that it was 30 inches of snow, took pictures of my house and everything, and said that we did curb to curb. The city did not do curb to curb on my block, or unfortunately on any other block. I mean, we just can't do it. And if we do it curb to curb, we end up plowing the snow back onto the sidewalks that people just shoveled. So I know you've probably been getting some of the comments. We've been getting a lot of phone calls here in the city. As I said, 4,000 calls this month. Most of them had to do with snow removal. Our guys have done a great job on our crews have done a great job on clearing this under tough conditions. I mean, it's been very difficult. So I want to thank them publicly at this meeting for doing a great job. Of not only the streets, remember the city owns a lot of sidewalks, and they've done a great job. They've worked hard, long hours through the night, and it's not believe me, being out in a snowplow. I've been out there myself before, and it's not a fun job, especially when you have whiteouts and you can't see more than 10 feet in front of you. You may have heard about us pulling snow plows crews from the West Ward and that's not true. We pulled them because one snow plow was so afraid because kids were playing in the snowbank that he was almost went right in it and would have killed these two kids. So there's a lot of reasons decision what we do. It's easier to plow at night because there's no one out, there's no one shoveling snow. So I want to thank the crews. They did a great job. They really did. And a lot of truck breakdowns that the mechanics worked on. I mean, and got them back out on the street. It's a huge effort when you have 30 inches of snow. I don't mind the 6 inches of snow, but when you start getting 30 inches of snow, there's just no place to push it. And the small plows, the small trucks can't. They just can't push it. So, and unfortunately, we have a lot of small streets, the very narrow streets. Cars parked there, they live there, and the big plows can't get through, and the small plows can't push it. It's that simple. So that's just a quick update and a thank you to our members of the Public Works Department. Dave, please extend our thanks to them for doing a great job. Okay, let's open it up to anyone else from the public that has a comment, concern, or question about the city. I see we have 11 people out there. If anyone wants to, the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen in the middle. I don't see any hands going up. Louis, do you? I don't see, or Tracy, I don't see any hands going up. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Take the shot, Joel. Take the shot.
Did that say 80 years of basketball?
40.
You started when you were 2.
Who's second the adjournment?
Mrs.
I did.
Volcano,
Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Pianto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Be safe.
Be safe.
Okay,
night.
you too. See you
Good night,
later.
Rita.
Good night, Kenny.